Hey guys, welcome to the Rusty Beauty's Garage. Today we're going to be working on another TR6 transmission, and no, we're not going to rebuild it. We have lots of transmission rebuild videos on the channel, so I don't film those anymore. What we're going to do here is we're going to deal with some leaks from the three shafts here, the three little O-rings, you know. This is a notorious place for these transmissions to leak from. Actually, this one in particular was leaking from all over the place, but I already dealt with it. I didn't want to bother you with that. I wasn't going to film anything, so I've done all the work already. I mean, here in the front we had troubles with this shaft. That's also a very common thing. Like, this is a weak spot. This pin that holds the fork to the shaft breaks, and people usually drill another hole and run a second pin here. There are some heavy duty pins available that we use as well to fix that, but in this case somebody decided that the easiest way was to just weld the fork to the pin. So the only way in this case is to cut the shaft to take it out. Well, I already did that. Took the shaft out, took out the snout from here, replaced the gasket behind it, the little cover underneath as well. I replaced the gasket. Again, I didn't want to bother you with all that because we do that all the time when we rebuild transmissions, and there's many videos about that on my channel. The rear end as well, the seal here in the back was leaking badly. It is replaced now, it's new. Actually, I took out the whole entire rear tail here of this transmission, and I replaced this gasket, so we have a new gasket here in between. That's not too hard to do when there's no overdrive on the transmission. When there's overdrive, it's a little bit more complicated. So the only thing that I haven't dealt with yet is the three O-rings here, and that's the part that I decided that I was gonna film, because I haven't done that for a long time, and I don't think there's many videos that show that. So the only a little bit more complicated part is the interlocking mechanism. There's two balls and two pins, if I remember correctly, right here in between these three shafts. If you're not familiar with them, you're gonna see them later, but there's three shafts here. When you shift to the left to go to first and second, the bottom of your shifter selects the right shaft, and then you move it back and forth. When you want to go to third and fourth position, you go in the center, so now you're selecting the center shaft, but if the one on the right is not returned to neutral, you're not going to be able to go to third and fourth. And then for reverse as well, you have to shift to the right, and now your shifter points towards the first shaft here on this side, and that's your shaft for reverse. But again, in order to select this shaft, you need to return the other two to neutral, so you don't go into first and reverse at the same time, for example. So that is achieved by this interlocking mechanism here. It forces you to return whichever shaft you're using last to neutral before you can go to select a different shaft. And also these three shafts have O-rings here in the back that are notorious for leaking, so that's what we are after. We want to change these three O-rings, but for that we have to take the whole mechanism apart. So let's get into that. Okay, so first of all, let's undo the wiring here, and let's explain these two switches now. This is non-overdrive transmission, so it doesn't have any switches here, but on these bosses sometimes you have switches for overdrive. In this case we only have these two switches. One is for neutral safety, which many cars don't have anymore, but the switch is still there, and the other one is for reverse. How do we know which one is which? Well, you can imagine when you go to reverse, what happens? You tilt the shaft this way, and the bottom of the shaft goes to the left, so this is your reverse switch, and this one is your neutral safety. So we're gonna unplug them, and for wiring, if you are curious, well, this one is broken, but we have one solid green wire. The solid green wire is power to both switches. So the green wire comes here, feeds this switch, and you see here we have two wires actually. So the second one is for the same power to come back and feed the other switch. So both switches have power on one of their pins, and on the other one, this one for example, is green with light green. So when this switch is activated, power returns back to this wire, and the same for the reverse. When the switch is activated, it returns through the green with brown here, and that goes to your tail lights to activate your reverse lights, right? That's why you have 3 wires here, because the green, solid green, is common for both switches. So let's get rid of the wiring. And now here we have 8 bolts. These 4 on the side are the same length. They're all short bolts, all the same. But these now, the longer ones, they are 2 different lengths because of this step here, or they're supposed to be 2 different lengths. These 2 are a little bit shorter than these. So if by any chance you switch those, there you go, you see? This one is longer. If by any chance you switch those, if you put the longer one here, it's gonna bottom out before the cover is tight, and you're gonna strip the threads. If you put the short one here, like you see how much it holds. It holds like probably 5/8 of an inch when it's here, but if you put it here, it's gonna hold only a 1/4 inch, maybe 2-3 threads. And again, if you tighten it too much, it's gonna strip them. So it's very important to put these back in the same order. And now with a gentle tap here, the seal breaks and you can take it out. And this is what I'm talking about. These are the 3 selector shafts that I'm talking about, and you can see each one controls a different fork here. This one is for 1st and 2nd gear, this one is for 3rd and 4th, and this one is for reverses. Now, because we're gonna have to take everything apart here, we have to memorize that. So first of all, the orientation of the forks, they face each other. You see where the screws are? The screws are facing each other. And also these spacer tubes here, it's important to know where they go. Of course, this one goes on this side, this one goes on this side, and then we have a short one here for the reverse. I made a mistake long time ago and I wasn't able to shift. Here we have, okay, in this case, these are plugs. So there's springs with bows here that fall right into a notch on each and every shaft, and that is to kind of lock it in place. Let me see if I can show you one of them. Yeah, you see the notch here. So we have 2 more on the shaft. So when the spring pushes the bow into this notch, it kind of locks your shaft in place. That's why you feel this, you see, this click when you go into whatever gear you go. Sometimes these are screws, so you can take a screwdriver and remove them. But on the later transmissions, I guess they decided to make it easier and they just pushed in these plugs. There's ways to take them out, but I figured out a way to deal with that without taking them out, because it's hard to take them out and then it's hard to put them back in and keep them in place. So we're gonna avoid removing those. I believe there's 2 springs with 2 bows here, and the 3rd one is a spring with a pointy pin. So next, let's take it to the bench and we're gonna start taking it apart. Okay, so first let's get rid of this shifter. So there's a little pin with a spring that kind of keeps your shaft from going left and right, like from rattling. Here these don't need to be removed completely. Well, at least this one. We can just loosen this. Well, this side actually needs to be removed, so we can get rid of this bracket. On the early transmissions, this is one bolt, that long bolt that goes through. On the late transmissions, it's two separate. So now here we should be able to turn this cap. You see, it has the notches here. So we'll just turn it. And this is your shifter. Now let's see if something is gonna fall out. Nope, because it's missing. Oh no, it's there. So this is the spring. And this is the pin that fell out. See, one side is a little bit oval, the other one is flat. So the oval side of course goes towards, but you have to be careful not to lose it. So we're gonna clean this up. And this inside, I don't know if you're gonna be able to see it, but the three shafts form a slot where the shifter slides left and right to select the shaft and then pushes them in and out. We're gonna see that when we flip it around. So now let's take these switches out. It's important to remember how many gaskets there are here. The switch has a pin that goes in and out, and sometimes it might be too far away or too close to the shaft, so the gaskets adjust it to the exact position. Here we have two gaskets on both sides. See? And now here we have a pin that we can take out with a magnet. So this is the pin that I'm talking about. It goes through a hole on this shaft, and then when it is pushed to the left, it pushes on this pin. See? So this is part of our interlocking mechanism. We're gonna show you more about it. Then the same on the other side. Now on this side we don't have a pin. Here we have a notch that the end of the switch falls into, the little bowl. Now we're gonna start taking out these screws here that hold the forks. Now for these screws, they're square head. I bought specifically this set of, what do they call them? Pipe plug sockets. So they're males, square head, and females. So oops, we're never gonna see that again. Okay, found it. You don't need to look for it. So this one is 5/16 with female square, 3/8 drive on this side, and it fits perfectly. So I've done it with a wrench before. Believe me, it's really hard. This is the best way. So that's what the pins look like. Take them all out. Okay, and now we can take the shafts out one by one, but we have to have in mind that because of the way the shafts are here, you can't remove the one in the middle before you remove both sides. You have to remove this one and this one first, doesn't matter the order, and only then you can remove the one in the middle. Even if you have one removed on one side, this one is not going to be able to come out if you don't remove this one, because the shoulder here is going to hit. And then of course when you're putting them back, you have to put the one in the middle first and then the two on the side. Okay, let's pull this one. Now these springs here and bolts are gonna fall out as we're pulling these out, and we're gonna figure out there's a way to put them out. So we're not gonna worry about them, let them fall out. Now because the bolt is in the notch of the shaft, it's tricky. You have to like kind of give it a hit initially or reach with something from underneath. Like we're trying to remove the first one first on this side. So you see, okay, that now it fell into the other notch, and now once it's out of that notch, like this, now it can slide, no problem. So you see here, this is where this pin lives, into this hole. Now the tube is gonna fall here, and we're gonna let it stay there so we can compare it with this one, because I don't remember if these two are the same length. And now I can continue pulling, and we're gonna hear it coming, the ball from here. There you go. So that bow is now loose. Okay, the first shaft is out. I'm gonna take this fork out, but I'm gonna leave the tube there so we can compare it to this one. Now, like we said, we have to go with after this shaft. Same thing is gonna happen there. The bow or the cone, whatever it is, it's gonna fall. There you go. So this shaft is out. Take out this. And now the last one in the middle. Right now we have again the bow into the notch, but we can turn it sideways and pull it out, no problem. And my pin fell out. So here we have a pin as well, right? So I'll show you how the whole mechanism works. So my pin fell out. Forgot about that. There you go. This bow just fell. So let's take this pin before we lose it. Get rid of this. And now let's compare these tubes. Yeah, one is longer, one is shorter. So the longer one is in the middle. Okay. Now I can take them out. And now there are two bows here in between the three shafts. Inside the shaft we have these pins, but between the two pins we have also two bows. So let's take them out. One bow and the other bow here. There you go. Now let's see if we can take out these bows from here. If I push with the shaft again, that's gonna push the bow out. Hopefully, there you go. This one came out. Now the spring is still there and it's gonna stay there. It's not gonna fall out because it's longer than this opening. Let's see if this one is gonna come out. No, but we can kind of do this. Let me take this one out before we lose it. There you go. This one came out as well. But this here, for reverse, is not a ball. It's a cylinder with tapered end, with a cone end. So that one can stay there. And you can see the two springs as well. Okay, now everything is out except the O-rings here. We're gonna take care of them now, and then we're gonna explain how the interlocking mechanism works and how we're gonna put it back together. And this is where the three O-rings live. And holy crap, unfortunately there's no good way for these O-rings to seal properly. I've heard people installing two, but I don't see how that's possible. I don't see room there for two O-rings. Somebody told me that they install a seal, this type seal, but smaller of course. But I don't think I can find a seal that fits there. So we're just gonna install O-rings again. So let's clean this up. That's how the design is, right? So these don't look too bad. I mean, they're not hardened. Same thing. Sometimes when they are like plastic, when you squeeze them and they break, you're like, okay, I'm doing the right thing here. No, these don't look too bad, but the only thing we can do is to replace them with new ones. Okay, I'll go and clean this plate on the wire wheel and I'll be back. Now that this plate is clean, you can see that it has a very slight bend here. It is bent like this, and that is to add springiness to it, right? So when you put it like this with the bent this way, when you put the screws there, that's gonna put more tension here on this side. If you put it the other way around, or if it is flat, there's not gonna be a lot of tension here. So this is important to know. So let's see the new seals, the new O-rings. This is from most motors, I guess. Part number 290925. Let's compare them. I'm hoping that these are a little bit thicker. So that's the new one. It's the old one. I don't know. Oh, actually, I can see some damage here on this one. I don't know. So hopefully these are damaged. And anyway, we're gonna lubricate them just a little bit with this is ATF. Okay, we can put the plate back. Oh, I didn't clean the screws. Let me clean them. Okay, and that was the whole reason why we took this cover apart, all the shafts and everything, just so we can change these 3 O-rings. Now, this transmission had lots of other leaks, so that's why we took it out. But if you only have a leak from here, you don't need to take your transmission out. You can take the cover out as the transmission is in the car. You just need to take the transmission cover from under your dash out, right? Now, before we start assembling, let's explain how the interlocking mechanism works so we can assemble it properly. So these are your 3 shafts, and you can see how when the forks are attached to this end, by moving one shaft back and forth, you move one fork and then the other and then the other. But like we said, we don't want these shafts to move at the same time. If 2 of the forks move at the same time, we're gonna engage 3rd and 1st gear, for example, or 1st and reversed, or something like that, and we're gonna mess up the transmission. So only one should be able to move at a time, and then it needs to be returned to neutral so another one can move. And this is where this interlocking mechanism comes in place. Just wanted to show you the other end, the other side. These are the notches, so this is for reverse, so it only has neutral and reverse position, but this is where the plunger falls that I showed you on the cover. These 2 have 3 notches each. You see, the smaller one for neutral, and then bigger one for 3rd and 4th. The one on this side is 1st and 2nd. On this one, this is the one for reverse, right? We have this notch on the side, so that's for the switch. When we are in neutral, the switch is like this and it's open. When we go in reverse, that pushes the switch like this, and that activates our reverse lights on the tail lights. And then you go to neutral and the switch falls into the notch again and turns off the lights. So, okay, but let's talk about the interlocking here, right? So this is where this clever mechanism comes in place. So we have the 2 switches on each side. This actually doesn't matter, so we're not gonna do it. It doesn't work with the interlocking. This is only the neutral safety. So if you remember, in these 2 shafts we have these pins inside here, right? Like this and like this. And in between them, we have these balls, like this, and like this. So I guess you can kind of figure it out already. Now, if one of the shafts move, let's say this one moves, that pushes these two bows sideways. And by pushing sideways, it locks them in place, locks these two shafts in place. That's how simple it is. Because now the shafts can't move because the bow fell into the hole. When we put this one back, now the bow can move, and we can move this shaft, let's say forward, and that pushes the bow into the hole of this shaft, but also the other end of the shaft pushes the other bow into this shaft, and it also pushes this switch on the other side. So that tells that we are not in neutral when this switch is activated. That's a different story. And then the same thing, we put this shaft back into neutral. That allows the bow to come back, allows this bow to come back, and the spring inside this switch pushes the pin back in. And now we are in neutral, the switch is disengaged. We want to move this shaft, same thing happens. This shaft pushes this bow into the center shaft, like this, come on, like this, and then this pin that's in the shaft pushes the other bow into the hole of this shaft, and now these two are locked, only this one can move. And in the meantime, this switch is also compressed here, and it's closed, so it tells the seatbelt module or whatever that we are not in neutral. Push it back, the bow goes back, and now all three shafts are free to move, but once one moves, the other two are locked. That's how it works. All right, so let's see how we're gonna assemble that now. Okay, so now, as we are assembling it, we have to deal with way too many things, but if we do it in strategical order, everything is gonna be fine. So like we said, we have to put the center shaft first, and we have to deal with these bolts here and springs and plungers, and we also have to deal with the interlocking mechanism here. Now on the late transmissions where you have the switches here, it's easy. It's very easy because you can only deal with this. You can put the three shafts in place, deal with these springs here and everything, and then assemble the interlocking mechanism from here, because you can put even the pin in the center shaft, you can put through here, then you put the two bolts from the sides, and then the other pin on this shaft, and then the switches. That's easy. But what happens if you have an early transmission which has one of these covers? You see, for this one, for example, you have two switches here, but you don't have switches here. This is not even open, but you still have the interlocking mechanism here. Believe me, it's there. So let's pretend, oh, I just wanted to show you this here too. Now, on the early transmissions, these are just screws, and you undo them and you take the plungers and the bolts out. So in that case, at least you don't need to deal with these. You take these out, you deal with the interlocking mechanism first as you're assembling it, and then once everything is assembled, you can put this, a plunger, two bolts and three springs. But let's pretend that we don't have access through here right now. Let's assemble it the way we would assemble the other one, so you can work it both ways. So, like we said, always first the center shaft goes in, and we're gonna have to put a pin in it here, because again, we don't have access here, right? These are closed. So we're gonna have to put a pin, but we're gonna put it after we deal with this first. So we're gonna push this all the way to the spring, then we're gonna put it a little bit like that. We're gonna take a ball, we're gonna lift the spring. I made a special tool for that. It's a really, really special tool. So we can lift the spring, and if it doesn't stay, we can flip this upside down, but in our case, I'm pretty sure it's gonna stay. No. Here magnets come really handy. Now here the trick is to use assembly goo, so it dissolves, and we're gonna take some of it and we're gonna put on that spring inside, so that's gonna make it stay up. I'm hoping just needs to stay up long enough so we can drop the bow inside. Okay, we have to be fast. Okay, now the bow is under the spring, so now with this screwdriver again we can lift the bow into the channel here and push the shaft up, and I'm trying to stay out of your way, you know, so there you go. No. Okay, so the shaft came through, but now we have to deal with multiple things here. I'm gonna straighten this out, and we shouldn't forget our tubes. So we said the longest tube is in the center, so this is my longest tube. Then we have the two forks. This one is kind of symmetrical profile. This one is a little bit offset because this goes to the side, this goes in the center. So that's how they go. And again with the screws facing each other. So this is the one that we need. We're pushing the shaft. Now I fell into the notch here. Now the bow fell into some notch, so I can twist it a little bit and I can continue pushing it. See, this is a hole for the screw. So I can push, but not all the way, because here we shouldn't forget to put our pin in the middle. So again, what we're gonna do with the pin is we're gonna pack this with grease or goo so we don't drop it, we don't lose the pin, right? Push it in. Okay, no chance of falling out. And now we can push this all the way in, and we're gonna put it in neutral. So this is the second notch. No, this is the third notch, so I can turn it sideways still. Okay, this is my neutral. I can see this here, this notch here is right above the center of the hole. So this is my neutral. We're gonna deal with this later. So now let's put which one? Okay, let's say this shaft here on this side. Before we put it on though, we need to put the bow that's in between, because if we put the shaft through, we're not gonna be able to put the bow later. So in this case, we can put the bow through here, absolutely no problem, but like we said, we're gonna pretend that these are closed, so now the bow needs to go through here. So what we're gonna do is, we're gonna put this sideways, and we're gonna push a bow through, and when it reaches the bow, it's gonna fall. That's it. And we can verify that by looking this way through it. I don't know if you see the bow down there. I can see it. I don't know if you can see it, but I can see that the bow is where it's supposed to be. Now we have to be careful so the bow doesn't fall out, so maybe we're gonna put it this way. Okay, now we can put the shaft in here to lock the bow. So, no, this is the other shaft for the other side. So it is this one, right? And it also needs to have a pin here. We're gonna put it after. For now, we're just gonna push it through just to hold the bow in place, because we don't want to lose it, right? And until we hit the spring, this spring here. So now we're gonna do the same thing here. Put some assembly glue there to try and keep the spring up. Does it stay up? Not really, but you know what? I have another trick in my sleeve. If you have a sewing needle or something, you can actually put the bow in, even with the spring down, and then lift the spring. You see? That's it. Okay. And now, the same way, with our special screwdriver, we can lift the bow into the groove to the channel and push on the shaft here. It's a pretty heavy spring, but it works. Okay, once we have it through, now again, we have to make sure here we have the right fork. So that's the one that is offset, and screw towards the other screw. That's how it goes. Push a little bit further. Then the second longest tube. And before we go too far, we're gonna put the pin here again, the second one. Pack it with grease. And now I can push everything in. Until we get to neutral. Okay. Now in my case, I'm gonna put the switch here just so it holds my pin in place so I don't lose it, even though it's packed with grease and whatever, but I'm gonna put my switch. But like we said, in many cases, this is closed already. So anyway, and now this one, just to make sure everything is correct here. And now the last shaft is the reverse, which should work the same way. So here we don't have a bow, we have a comb, so we don't need to worry about it. But we have to put a bow here, the bow that goes in between the two shafts, this bow, right? So now we have a pin here, a bow, another pin, and now we need the second bow. And like we said, we're gonna do it the same way. We're gonna tilt it. We're gonna... Oops, that went too far. That went way too far. Let's see if we can take it out now. Yep. This channel is only up to here somewhere, then there's a wider space here, everything is connected. So if your bow goes in there, you have to shake it until it comes out. Okay, where did it go? Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do it this way. Almost horizontal, so it doesn't go in the wrong place. And let's look inside. Yes, I can see it there in the hole. I don't know if you can, but it's there. So now again, you have to be careful until we lock it with the shaft in place. So that's our last shaft. There you go. Until we hit the plunger. And now we can do the same thing. Okay, and that's it. Now here we have the fork first, and then the shortest tube. Okay. And this one didn't have a pin here, right? Remember, because that's the... Hold on, I'll pull it out a little bit so I can show you. Right? So, just a notch for the bow to fall into, but no pin. The pins are on this one and on this one, and the bows are between them. Okay, and now we can put back all the screws here, and then we're gonna test it. Okay, it's all back together. and shifts as it should. Make sure, because if you didn't assemble the tubes, for example, because I've done it before, I'm telling you, I switched the longest and the medium tubes, and then I wasn't able to shift into gear. I don't remember which gear, but now I made sure that all gears go in and out smoothly, no problem. Now, if you ever take out your neutral safety switch for some reason, make sure that that pin that goes through the shaft doesn't come out, right? Because it's possible to come out from here. The reverse, as you know, doesn't have a pin, so there's no worries there. When I assembled these switches, I made sure that I put the 2 gaskets on each of them, and I also put thread sealant by Permatex on the threads, because also the switches leak from here. Sometimes they leak internally, which you can't really deal with, but yeah, I guess now we are ready to put this transmission back on. So like I said, this was not the only issue with it, that's why we took it out, and I had to change the gaskets in the front, the gasket here, the rear seal, and even the seal and the o-ring on the speedometer gear. So that's why we took it out. But if you only want to change these 3 seals, you can take these 4 bolts out as the transmission is in the car, or these 8 bolts out as the transmission is still in the car, and take only the cover out. While the cover was out, of course, I checked the gears, nothing looks chipped, the synchros look in a good shape, so I put it back together. So needless to say that while you're here, checked all that. I topped up the oil also while the transmission was open. So I assembled it now, and we are ready to put it back in, and that's gonna be everything for today's video. So thank you guys for watching, commenting, subscribing, sharing, and supporting my channel. This is really important for me because it allows me to make these videos, to spend time editing them, because filming is easy. I'm doing the work anyways, but the editing part is what takes forever. So thanks to your donations that you send to PayPal or to the Patreons who automatically donate $5, $10, or $20 every month, I am able to do that. So thank you so much, guys. If you are not a supporter and you consider becoming one, there's links in the description to my Patreon page and to my PayPal. There's a button, I believe, called Buy Me a Beer. You can hit that, and through PayPal you can donate 1, 3, 5, 10, 100, whatever you want to donate, so I can buy a beer. That's how I call it. Anyways, one more thing I want to say is that the financial support doesn't buy you anything, not because I don't want to give extra to the people who support me, but because I don't want to take away from the people who don't, because these people, they might want to support me, but I can't afford it. So I just leave it totally up to you. Everything is free on the channel, and if you feel like donating a little bit, you can do it. But if you don't, or you can't afford it, you still have access to everything. So it's totally up to you. Anyway, thank you so much, guys, again, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.